June 12, 2026. NASDAQ. The largest IPO in history begins. SpaceX raises $75 billion in a single day. The valuation, $177 trillion. Bigger than any IPO before it, bigger than Alibaba, bigger than Saudi Aramco. The kind of number that rewrites what's possible. 555.6 million shares, $135 each. Ticker, SPCX. Millions of retail investors, institutional funds, sovereign wealth funds, all buying in on day one. The hype is real. The momentum is real. The story is real. Then someone opens the S-1 filing. Deep in the filing, 2025 net loss, $494 billion. Not a rounding error, not a one-time write-down. A $494 billion loss in a single year. The year before that, SpaceX was profitable, $791 million in the black. So what happened between 2024 and 2025? What turns a profitable rocket company into a $5 billion loss right before the largest IPO ever? Something changed. Something was added to the books, and it didn't come from rockets. SpaceX has 3 business units. Only one of them makes money. Starlink, $11.4 billion in revenue, $442 billion in operating income, 10.3 million subscribers paying every month, from remote farms in Montana to fishing boats off the coast of Norway. A cash machine. The kind of business that would be worth hundreds of billions on its own. Then there's the rocket business. Falcon 9 Starship. Commercial launches. $657 million operating loss in 2025. Expensive, capital-intensive, but defensible. SpaceX is still the dominant launch provider on the planet. And then there's the third unit, the one that doesn't appear cleanly in the segment breakdown. xAI, Elon Musk's artificial intelligence company, merged into SpaceX's financials before the IPO. 2025 operating loss, $635 billion. Projected 2026 loss, $10 billion. Starlink made $442 billion. xAI lost $635 billion. The math is not subtle. In 2024, SpaceX, as a standalone company, earned $791 million in net income. After the xAI merger, 2025 net loss came in at $494 billion. One merger, one decision. And a profitable company stopped being profitable. In 2023, the average Starlink subscriber paid $99 a month. By 2026, that number had dropped to $66, a 33% decline per customer. And nobody's talking about it. Starlink had 2.3 million subscribers in late 2023. 2 years later, 10.3 million. More than 4 times the size. Reaching places that had never seen broadband. Remote villages, ships at sea, disaster zones, places where cable companies never showed up. Starlink now generates $11.4 billion in annual revenue. That is 61% of everything SpaceX makes. It is the only profitable division in the entire company. Without it, the SpaceX IPO story falls apart. But the math is shifting underneath. Volume is compensating for now. More subscribers are covering the gap left by lower pricing. 10 million users at $66 still adds up. For now. But growth will slow. It always does. And when it does, the only profitable division starts shrinking from the inside. Not fewer customers, just less money from each one. In 2024, Elon Musk built the world's largest supercomputer. He did it in 122 days in a former appliance factory in Memphis, Tennessee. 100,000 NVIDIA H100 GPUs, live and running. Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, called the speed superhuman. Then Musk doubled it. 200,000 GPUs in 92 more days. Then came Colossus 2. Another 555,000 GPUs added. Total across all xAI facilities, over 800,000 GPUs. Jensen Huang was right. This was not a normal build. But here is what the press releases left out. 27 gas turbines were installed without air permits, running without regulatory approval. The NMLACP filed suit. The Southern Environmental Law Center filed challenges. Residents in the surrounding neighborhoods reported respiratory issues, and the GPUs themselves running at 11% utilization. 800,000 of the most expensive processors on Earth sitting inside the fastest supercomputer ever assembled, and 90% of them are idle. The lawsuits are still open, the permits are still pending, and the GPUs are still waiting. June 2026, Google agreed to pay one company $920 million a month. That company builds rockets. After SpaceX merged with xAI, it inherited something unexpected: a data center, 110,000 NVIDIA GPUs, and Google wanted access. The deal, $920 million per month. October 2026 through June 2029. Total value $30.4 billion. For a rocket company, this had nothing to do with launches, satellites, or Starlink. But the contract has hard conditions buried inside it. If those GPUs are not fully operational by September 2026, Google can terminate immediately, no penalty. Gone. After December 31st, 2026, either side can walk away with 90 days notice. This deal was not in the original S-1. It was filed separately via a free-writing prospectus on June 5th. 2 days before the amended filing, the timing was not a coincidence. SpaceX needed recurring, predictable revenue at a scale Wall Street could price. A $30 billion AI infrastructure contract with Google does exactly that. A rocket company, a data center, a $920 million monthly check. The question is not whether SpaceX can reach orbit. The question is whether the GPUs arrive on time. Anthropic makes Claude, one of the most advanced AI systems ever built, a direct competitor to xAI's Grok. In May 2026, Anthropic signed a deal with SpaceX, $125 billion every month for 3 years, 325,000 GPUs from Colossus, SpaceX's supercomputer cluster in Memphis, Tennessee. Total contract value $45 billion, larger than Google's deal with SpaceX, which runs $920 million a month. Combined, SpaceX now earns $2.17 billion per month, just from renting GPUs. Here is the part that makes no sense on the surface. Anthropic is training the AI that competes with Grok, using SpaceX's hardware, paying SpaceX's bills, funding SpaceX's IPO. Why does Grok have capacity to lease? The GPUs were running at just 11% utilization. The hardware sat idle, so SpaceX leased it to the competition. Without the Anthropic deal, SpaceX's AI segment has almost no external revenue. With it, the story changes completely. Your competitor is your biggest customer, and your biggest customer is helping build a company worth $1.77 trillion. $2.17 billion per month. That is how much SpaceX claims in new GPU rental revenue. Anthropic signed for 325,000 GPUs at $1.25 billion per month through May 2029. Google signed for 110,000 GPUs at $920 million per month through June 2029. Combined $26 billion a year in recurring contracts. Wall Street loved it. The number turned a money-losing AI division into a growth story overnight. But here is what the filing actually says. Google's contract has a 90-day termination clause. After December 31st, 2026, Google can walk away with 3 months' notice. The deal also requires every GPU operational by September 2026. Miss that deadline, the contract terminates immediately. Anthropic's deal has its own delivery requirements. And right now, GPU utilization across the entire fleet sits at 11%. These contracts were not even in the original S-1. They were filed separately on June 5th, the day before pricing. SpaceX is valued at $1.77 trillion. $26 billion of that revenue has a 90-day exit door, and the hardware supposed to earn it is 89% idle. The largest IPO in history, investors put in $75 billion. And their voting rights? Almost none. Here is how it works. Class A shares carry 1 vote each. Class B shares carry 10 votes each. Elon Musk holds Class B. After the offering, he controls 82.4% of all voting power. But his economic stake? 12.3%. He owns 12% of the company and controls 82% of the vote. It gets stranger. Musk is the CEO, the CTO, and the chairman of the board, all 3 roles at the same time. Class B shareholders alone appoint 51% of the board. Because SpaceX filed as a controlled company, it is legally exempt from requiring an independent board of directors. No independent oversight, no check on his decisions. Can he be fired? No. The board cannot remove him. The shareholders cannot remove him. He owns the votes. He holds the titles. He is the company. Denmark's largest pension fund blacklisted SpaceX entirely. CalPERS and the New York City pension system called it catastrophic governance. $75 billion went in, zero voting power came out, 12% ownership, 82% control, and that was always the plan. $50,080 a year. That is what SpaceX pays its CEO. Elon Musk's base salary has been $54,080 since 2019. But buried in the S-1 filing is where it gets interesting. His real compensation is an award of up to 200 million additional Class B shares, each carrying 10 times the voting power of a regular Class A share. The award vests in 15 tranches, tied to escalating market cap milestones from $500 billion to $7.5 trillion. But here is the catch. None of those tranches vest, not a single one, until SpaceX establishes a permanent human colony on Mars with at least 1 million inhabitants. That is not a vision statement. That is a condition written into a document filed with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, and it never expires. There is no deadline. The filing does not define how the board certifies a colony exists. Nobody knows what permanent means. Nobody knows who counts the millionth person. The biggest CEO bonus in history requires building a civilization on another planet. In 2024, the Pentagon paid SpaceX to launch something into orbit. The payload is classified, the destination is classified, the mission is classified. The only thing public is the price tag. SpaceX's biggest customer is the United States government. NASA has contracted SpaceX for crewed missions to the International Space Station under the Commercial Crew Program, for ISS resupply flights. For the Artemis moon lander, the vehicle designed to return humans to the lunar surface. The Department of Defense has contracted SpaceX for the National Security Space Launch Program, military satellites, strategic payloads, total government contracts over $22 billion. But here is where it gets uncomfortable. Roughly half of that comes from the Department of Defense, and some of those launches, the payloads, the mission details, the cargo, cannot be disclosed. Classified. SpaceX holds a security clearance. Some of what they launch into orbit, the public will never know about. The most glamorous private space company in history is also one of the largest government contractors in the United States. When you buy this stock, you are not just betting on Mars or Starlink or Starship. You are betting on the United States defense budget,